All right, welcome back to another edition of the Blue Review, a Tuesday edition, coming fresh off of a Dodgers win, courtesy of a huge third inning. We got a lot to get into today, but before we do anything, I want to welcome our guest, our very special guest, Jeff Spiegel, of course, of our friends at Dodger Blue. Jeff, I'm going to kind of pass it to you along real quick. Where can everybody find your work? I know we had you on a few weeks ago, so the Blue Review fans are kind of familiar with you, familiar with your game.
Very familiar.
That's right. That's right. But welcome on. Where can we find your stuff? Where can we find Jeff?
I appreciate it. At Jeff Spiegel on Twitter, and then at Dodger Blue 1958 is kind of the site's social media. Dodger Heads podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, and then of course Dodger Heads lives on YouTube as well. So it's good to be with you guys. Greg Bergman, special guest on on our channel that's going to be going up this morning. So we're doing a little home and home here.
I liked it. It was fun. That was a really good conversation too. So it's on just the YouTube page for
Dodger Blue 1958 YouTube page.
All right, so we can find that pretty soon here. We're doing a whole little, quid pro quo. I like it. So first off, before we do anything, I just want to say that here at the Blue Review, we're presented by LAX and the Los Angeles International Airport. Our friends over there are always changing the travel experience, reducing traffic, saving guests time, and just making things better for the whole experience in general. We call it our home away from home here at the station sometimes. And if you want to learn more, you can find that out at flylax.com/transforminglax. So let's just get right into this, guys. Great game yesterday. And I know you were kind of talking about it before this episode already. So I want to start right there. Jeff, Yamamoto, an outstanding performance. So my question to you really is kind of an overarching question. Because, of course, it wasn't his most dominant performance, but he was still brilliant. Are we considering at this point now Yamamoto an anchor of this starting pitching rotation? And how many anchors do we have here in this Dodgers rotation? There's kind of multiple layers to that question.
Yeah, no, I think for sure. I think he's an upper echelon pitcher in Major League Baseball. They paid him like one, that's for sure. The biggest contract ever given out. But the stat, 2.38 ERA post-Korea, 59 strikeouts, 10 walks. That was from Mike Petrello. So I think he's proving that he's that guy. Now, we could get into, is he a 1A type? Is he on par with Tyler Glasnow? Is Glasnow a half step above? But I definitely think when you look at a top of the rotation, we were joking on our show, who's going to be playoff pitchers? And I think Glasnow, Yamamoto are non-negotiables. I would add Bobby Miller, if he's healthy, as a non-negotiable to that group. So I think those three guys I would call anchors. I'm not saying they're all true bona fide number one aces necessarily, but I think all three of those guys are either cemented as a 1, cemented as a 2, or in the case of Bobby Miller, definitely seems like he has the ceiling to get into that same stratosphere.
Yeah, Bobby Miller is going to be a guy that, when he comes back, what is it, Jeff? In a couple of weeks, he's supposed to be coming back. Mm-hmm. So when he comes back, and if he pitches like he did last year, and he can get into the postseason, that he probably is your number 3, and that's going to be over Kershaw, and that's over Buehler, and all these other. Gavin Stone's been fantastic, but the fact of the matter is, you're right, Parker, that you have 2 clear aces right now in Glasnow and Yamamoto, and it's really nice to see Yamamoto be that type of guy just in general, because after Korea, people are like, "Oh, is he going to be that guy?" But we were talking about it just on Jeff's YouTube page just a few minutes ago. That he just throws so many different pitches, and he keeps adding new pitches. Mm-hmm. So it's no matter what, he's going to get him to 5-6 different pitches, and he changes eye levels as well. So we've talked a lot about on here the adjustments to the adjustments for rookie pitchers, and he's adjusting in real time. It's all happening at the same as we're watching it. So he's continually trying to find things that are going to make him more and more unhittable to hit right now, and he's been very, very good since Korea.
Mm-hmm. And you brought up a good point, Greg, about just the changing of, his array of pitches is just ridiculous. He practically abandoned the cutter last night. I don't even know. He maybe threw it 3 to 5 times, I felt. I'll have to check on that, but still, Jeff, the fact that he has this array of pitches, he can change things on you so much. Do we see him becoming that 1A? I know you said maybe we don't get into the semantics between him and Glasnow, but just based off of Glasnow's past, and what we're seeing so far from Yamamoto and how he's going up. And Glasnow's not necessarily. I'm not trying to say Glasnow's digressing, but just the fact that Yamamoto's doing this right now, and we're seeing just this progressive rise, and he's changing things up. Each game is different. Each game is making it harder and harder for batters to figure him out. I mean, what is his ceiling? Jeff, do you have any idea, or is this more of like, we'll see when we get there?
It's crazy because he's a rookie. He's 25 years old. He's just adapting to, a new league. And they asked Freddie Freeman about like, hey, he's a rookie, right? And he's like, yeah, it's more than just a rookie. He's in a completely different country, learning, like, we're surrounded by people that speak a completely different language. So imagine not just moving to a new country and not just adapting to a new culture, but also having to adjust to a new league and doing all of that at the age of 25, like for the first time. All of that is crazy. And so that's why I think we haven't gotten to the ceiling yet of Yamamoto. I think what we've seen over the last, I think it's 9 starts where he's got that sub 3 ERA. Like, I think that's sustainable. And I think he's actually going to build off of it. You mentioned the pitches. He threw 6 different pitches last night. The cutter he threw 3 times. So you were right on that one. But my thing is, like, when you can throw 6 pitches, and by the way, Dave Roberts said afterwards that they're adjusting. They're actually adding to that tally of how many pitches he can throw. But the key is not just that he throws 6 pitches. He throws all of them for strikes. Every single time a hitter identifies, oh, that's a cutter, oh, that's a sinker, oh, that's a four-seamer, that's a curveball, that's a slider, whatever it is, as soon as they identify, they don't get to just lay off and say, oh, well, he never lands the slider for strikes, so it's going to end up out of the zone. He lands all of them for strikes and throws them exactly where he wants. And so, Greg, for me, like, the stuff is really good. The command is really good. And when he gets more and more comfortable and more adapted and adjusted and settled, not only into Major League Baseball, but into the United States, like that's why I'm optimistic that there's more in the tank for Yamamoto.
Yeah, so you brought something up to me I know I keep referencing your show, but we literally just did it. But so it's fresh in my mind. But you brought something up to me, and I want to throw it back at you on here on the Blue Review, that he's in a six-man rotation. It's not an actual, it is a 6-man rotation. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what Dave says. It's a 6-man rotation. Because it's a 6-man rotation, he's going to have to pitch on shorter rest when you get to the postseason. Is that something you think he can do, and how do you think they'll allow that to happen?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an adjustment. The fact that they're on this rotation, they're giving all these guys extra rest. And we all know when you get to the postseason, I think the Dodgers are going to have the depth. And this is like a big knock on wood. People are going to get mad that I'm saying this out loud. But I think they're going to have enough starting pitching depth where we're not looking at a 3-man rotation and like, well, holy crap, I guess Lance Lynn is pitching game 4 because we don't have a better option. Or, oh, shoot, I guess Tyler Glasnow is going on like 2 days rest because that's our best option. I think they're going to be able to find at least 4 starters that they feel decent about. I think they've got a group of 8 that you're hoping will be healthy, and then you can choose 4. So I don't think they're going to have to do like, oh, shoot, our game 1 starters pitching game 4 because we're desperate. But I do think you're not going to pitch a 5-man rotation. So you're going to have guys that are going on what to most Major League pitchers is normal rest, but to the Dodger pitchers right now is not normal rest. That will be an adjustment. Dave Roberts even said last night that this has been part of the plan, that they've kind of been easing him in. He threw 100 pitches for the very first time last night. And so I think that's going to be adjustment. But I just have to believe that the Dodgers have a plan for this, that it's not just going to be a 6-man rotation through the end of September into October, and then just like, well, let's see what happens when we go to a normal rest situation. I think they've got a plan. I trust Andrew Friedman. I trust Dave Roberts. But I do think that's going to be, I'm curious, like, when that plan starts. Does it start after the All-Star break? Do they wait until August, September? That will be the interesting sort of thing to keep an eye on in what we imagine will not be a very exciting divisional race. So that'll be the biggest storyline, I think, the last like 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah. I mean, Corbin Carroll's raking a solid 189 right now. It's not looking good over there in Arizona. But you brought up a good point, and Jeff, I guess to both of you guys, I'll start with you, Jeff. There were a few names, of course, that you kind of didn't mention when it came to those 3 guys who you're going to be seeing out there. Solid performances. Yamamoto, Glasnow, Miller. Where are you on the Buehlers of the world, the Kershaws of the world? We'll start with Buehler.
Yeah.
How confident are you that he will get back to at least as close to old Buehler, vintage Buehler, as we've seen?
So anybody who's seen my stuff knows I'm the optimistic guy on here. I didn't want to bury Walker Buehler. I refused to bury Clayton Kershaw. Like, I'm not going to be that guy. And I was saying when Buehler came back, I'm not going to overreact one way or the other until we see 3 or 4 starts. So we're kind of at that point where I think we can evaluate. Here's the key to me with Walker Buehler. There's 2 reasons that I'm optimistic. And I'm not saying optimistic like he's going to be back to being a number 1 guy, but I think he can be like a 3.5 ERA guy, which would put him in the top 20 to 25 pitchers in Major League Baseball. I still think he has that in him. And here's why. One is the velocity is better than anybody could have imagined. And I know there are people that are like, oh, he's going to be at 93 and whatever. He's touching 97. The velocity is legit. But the second thing is even more important. Eric Karros had a comment when he was talking about Landon Knack the other day, and he said there's a difference between throwing and pitching. And the reason he liked Landon Knack is because Landon Knack is a pitcher. Well, Walker Buehler has been able to succeed as a thrower for so long because his stuff was so good. And the question was, could he, like Clayton Kershaw had to do a number of years ago, become a pitcher who has to rely on having good stuff but not great stuff? And the key to me, and one of our co-hosts, Blake Williams, said this. He said the thing that about Buehler is he's always open to information. He's not stubborn. He wasn't like, I'm just going to do it my way. He was open to give me all the readings, give me all the metrics, give me all the StatCast driveline stuff, and I will adjust. And so he admits he's been hesitant to maybe fully adjust, but now I think he is being forced to. And he said after his last start, I guess I'm going to have to keep listening to people because that worked. So I think his willingness to listen and to adjust while also still having 97 in the tank when he needs it, that to me, Greg, is why I'm not saying, again, peak Buehler is coming back, but I think a guy who's in the mid threes from an ERA perspective, which is far better than all the haters would have ever imagined, I'm still a believer that we've got that coming to us the next few months.
So I think I'm totally with you on that, Jeff, because we were talking about it a little bit yesterday on the Blue Review. But for the most part, Walker Buehler, because of the fact that he's listening to people, because he said after his start that I need to listen to more people, because he didn't. He wasn't, as much as he said, give me all the information. He didn't. He went on his own timeline. He did what he wanted. He was the one that came on and said, I want to be back September 1st. And Dave was like, whoa. Yeah, September 1st is probably not something that's going to work out. But he wanted to get back, so he pushed it, and he pushed his rehab a little bit too much, and it pushed him further down that he couldn't come back for the postseason. He couldn't come back for spring training. He couldn't come back for the start of the regular season. He had to go through 6 different rehab assignments when usually the rehab assignments are 2, 3 for a pitcher. So he was not listening. And now the fact that he's saying that he's listening and he's going to become more of a pitcher than a thrower is massive for me, because the fact that he's taking in that first start or first or second start back, he came and he was throwing 96 to 98 and he was trying to hit that 90. He was trying to be a thrower and get as much velocity as possible. He dropped it all down. It went 94 to 96. And that's where, when you drop your velocity down, you have more control and you can have more command of those pitches and become a pitcher like you were talking about. So that part to me, that shows that he's going to listen. And that's what gives me hope because when those first couple starts, I was not hopeful at all, because if he was going to try and be that guy, he was not going to be good and he was going to fall apart. But if he can dial it back, I'm very, very excited for what he can be. Well,
Greg, they do say that at 29, it is a year of self-reflection and self-discovery. So maybe Walker's turned a new leaf and he's a new man, so to speak. But looking at last night specifically, guys, the offense, on the offensive end, we talked a lot about pitching today. And if we had hours, we would keep on doing this, but we kind of got to pin it down a little bit. Freddie, so he's been saying he's treading water all season in his words, but he's still, ranked so-and-so in the MLB. Like, he's still top 4 in OPS, I believe, and he's still top 12 in average. It's just Freddie, consistent Freddie. Jeff, what are we seeing out of him just this season? And then also obviously last year is hard. It's hard to gauge and compare because last year he just absolutely went off. But what are you going to see from him this year, Jeff? Like, is he going to keep going up? Is he going to stay around this numbers right here? I know there wasn't really a question in there, but what are you seeing out of Freddie?
I mean, here's the thing about Freddie Freeman. I've seen the people that are like skeptical, yada, yada, yada. The guy after last night is hitting 298, has a 409 on base and a 464 slugging percentage. Like, it doesn't look as sexy as when Ohtani hits or when Betts hits, or even, Will Smith has been very, very good this year. But like, the guy's insane. And I even mentioned, I threw this out on social media like about a few weeks ago, but March and April, people were all nervous and like, wow, man, it's like, it just feels like a slow start. He had a better March and April this year than he did last year. So wow. I think notoriously he kind of is a slow starter. Yeah. That said, his May last year was insane. In the month of May last year, 2023, he had a 211 weighted runs created plus. He slashed 400, 462, 722. For a whole month, Freddie Freeman did that. So this year, he's only at 153 weighted runs created plus for the month of May. The poor guy only has an OPS over 900. So I just think if there's one guy, and I mean this, like, Betts, Ohtani, throw all those guys in a bucket. If you're asking me one guy that I trust to just be consistent and to like have no doubts about what they're going to look like over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I would take Freddie Freeman. The highs might not be as high, but the lows are never as low. This is low. He's hitting 298, Greg. There's panic in the world because Freddie Freeman's batting average does not start with the 3.
No, you're absolutely right. But I mean, even Freddie is the one saying like, I'm not hitting well right now. I'm not in the zone. I'm not figuring myself out just yet. So the fact all those numbers are true and correct. And that's one of the problems with stats in general and basing everything just on stats, because the stats look fantastic. But if you also look at it a little bit deeper in how he's actually been playing, he has been struggling for Freddie Freeman. I mean, for Freddie Freeman is, one of the best players on any team in baseball. Yeah, right. But for Freddie Freeman, he's struggling a little bit. Before that grand slam, I think he had 4 RBIs. I think they were saying 4 RBIs in the last 2 weeks. So, or 14 games, something like that. He was not getting it run producing. He wasn't being the guy that he has to be in that 3 spot. So the fact that him to be able to have that grand slam, get those numbers back up, start producing again, that's what's going to make him feel better again. It's not about getting the home runs, because he's always been a double guy. Like he gets you like 60 doubles by the end of the season. So I trust Freddie just as much as Jeff, and more than pretty much anybody on this team. He is a consistent as you want. He just needs to be a little bit more run producing and feel good about himself as well, because he is not comfortable at the plate. Yeah. And hopefully that all changed. And if anybody's going to change it, it'll be him.
Yeah. We heard some good quotes from him last night saying, ultimately the swing is feeling a little better. But when people say something like this, there's only a few who I really can look in the eye and be like, yeah, that guy means it. And when he says, I never kind of waver, it's a long season, I don't ride the roller coasters, I try and just keep on the straight roller coasters all season. I believe Freddie more than pretty much anybody in the league almost.
Yes.
So
real quick, not to interrupt you, but like to Greg's point, I will say I believe, I'm with you. I believe him, and yet he looked so ticked off at the plate over the last week. Like when he says I don't ride the roller coaster, I'm like, that sure looks like a guy who's riding the roller coaster, Freddie. I'm gonna be honest here.
I'm only batting 298.
Yeah. But what's funny is I'm noticing it's very I don't know, it's subtle, but I'm noticing a lot of emotion out of those 3 guys, the big 3, who are typically known as even-keeled guys. When Shohei was going through before this weekend, there were a few moments where he was getting some strikeout calls that were questionable, and it was some of the first times I've ever seen Shohei actually look back at the ump and like be like, yo, that was outside, bro. Like, what you talking about? And you're seeing Freddie get kind of upset at his recent play. You're seeing Mookie get a little more emotional at his whiffs and his mess ups in the infield. Is this team, I mean, I don't know how to question this, but is this one of the more like, yes, we care about it and we want this more than some of these Dodger teams in the past, Jeff?
It's interesting. I think it's hard because we're in May. So when I think about like last year's team, I'm imagining what it looked like in September and October, not what it looked like in May. I do think across sports, when you add a guy who has won nothing, as Shohei Ohtani has, to a group, Tyler Glasnow, you could throw in the same category. When you add guys like that, it's impossible not to be a little bit more desperate, because you're feeding off of guys who are experiencing this type of winning pretty much for the very first time. The Rays were good when Glasnow was there, but like they're experiencing like, holy smokes, this is what it's like to win 2 out of every 3 baseball games you play. Like, I didn't realize that was possible. And to start believing for the first time in their lives by the middle of May that their title chances haven't already evaporated. And so I think there's naturally going to be a little bit more of that. Add in the disappointment of last year. I think that sort of cocktail will make it, there's more urgency, I would say, but I think it's a healthy urgency. Not that you were suggesting otherwise, but I don't think it's like desperation, like they're living and dying with every game. But I think it's just smart to add new guys into the group who have a hunger that a Mookie Betts, a Freddie Freeman, guys who have World Series rings in their back pocket, you can't fake that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, you can't. You're right. And it's Ohtani. Ohtani is really the one, because he's been in the league for so long and has never even sniffed the playoffs. The Angels never got close. I mean, Peter Parker. Did they ever get even close in the time that he was there? Yeah, exactly. So now that he's up there and he's showing you everything that he's doing, he got paid all that money. He was a driving force behind getting Yamamoto and Glasnow and wanting that pitching, so they are as great as they can be in the postseason. There's a little bit of that. It is a healthy. I also kind of think they're kind of looking at it like extended spring training, because they're obviously so much better than everybody else, and they can just throw at anybody and still win 100 games. But because that they're seeing the things that they need to work on. Like Mookie's upset with how he's playing at shortstop because he knows, okay, I need to clean this up before we get to October. And Shohei is like figuring out, I've never had a walk-off hit besides one in my career. Let me get another one of those. Yeah. So, I mean, there's all the little things that they need to work on. They're kind of working out, it seems like, right now. So there is a little bit of that urgency that they need to, but that you have to have that. You can't get complacent at any point. When you have an 8-game lead in May, that can evaporate in 2 weeks in July.
So despite all that being said, excuse me, Mookie and Shohei are still top 2 in the MVP race. I mean, they're nitpicking things, like you said, Greg. They're trying to figure things out per se, and they're still top 2 in MVP. Jeff, I have a question for you. Do you think we could potentially see Shohei end up as top 3? Not potentially. I think we will see him as top 3. Could he win MVP as DH? That's going to be my question.
It's a great question. I was just looking up the wins above replacement leaderboard. So you've got first in the National League at 3.1. Mookie Betts is 3.0. Next on the list in the National League is William Contreras. And then that gives you some context. That's good news for the Dodgers, that those are the guys that are behind him. I think it's going to be really hard for Ohtani to win the MVP as the DH. Simply because if Mookie Betts is anywhere close, the narrative of him switching to shortstop, you think about 2 guys, nobody's going to evaluate them strictly on what they've seen. Mookie Betts is going to get the extra credit for learning a new position, and Ohtani is going to get punished for not playing a position we have seen him play before. So they're not going to be able to look at 2024 in a vacuum and say, well, this guy, this is what they did. It's going to be like, this is what they did. But, man, we've seen Ohtani actually do more, so we're going to penalize him a little bit. And we've seen Mookie Betts do less, and holy smokes, he played a competent shortstop. So I think if Mookie Betts is in the realm of the MVP conversation, he's going to have the trump card over Ohtani, my view.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He's going to get punished for not pitching, and Mookie is going to get a big raise for moving over to shortstop, which is kind of an important position on the field, shortstop. You kind of need a good shortstop in this game. But the only way I can see him winning it is if he just destroys everybody in every single category. If he wins the Triple Crown and he's just 100 points higher in OPS and all these different things are just massively, massively higher, then that 3.1 number you said in WAR for a DH is insane. Yeah. It's insane for a DH to have a 3.1 WAR at this point, because WAR adds in defense and he doesn't play it. So the fact that he's better than everybody with no defensive abilities right now is insane to me. But no matter what, he has to be just way above. He's hitting 400 and he has, 145 RBIs and 50 home runs, and nobody's even close in everything. Yeah. But otherwise, no, Mookie is probably going to be right there, or they'll take votes away from each other, and somebody like Bryce Harper will come in.
Ohtani right now, by the way, 4th in home runs in Major League Baseball, tied with Aaron Judge. He also leads the league in batting average at 353. So you want to talk about a guy who might – I think he's going to hit 50 home runs. That was my prediction before the season. Yeah. I think he gets to 50. That. If he hits 340 with 50 home runs, what do you even do with a player like that?
What do you do?
And he has you have 11 WAR as a DH. It's nonsense.
Insane. What we're seeing so far in this Dodgers season has been insane. There's so many storylines to follow. And Jeff, we appreciate you coming on to kind of share your insight and talk about that. And we look forward to having you on even more. Tonight we got, speaking of 25-year-olds, Gavin Stone is on the mound today. I mean, gosh, I can't believe Yamamoto is only 25, and guys like Gavin Stone and Bobby Miller are only a few months different than him, and it's crazy. So we'll react tomorrow at the same time, 9:30 to 9:55 here on the Blue Review. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of let you roll out the red carpet to you, Jeff. all your work wherever we can find it again. I know you did at the beginning of the episode, but back to you again.
Yeah.
Send us off.
Dodger Blue 1958 on YouTube. Go ahead, check it out. Like Greg said, we did kind of a deep dive on Yamamoto and his performance. So that should be up in the next hour or so. And then we're doing a live post-game show. We do live post-game shows twice a week, Tuesday nights, Friday nights. We do podcasts live on Sunday nights. So tonight we'll have a live post-game show after the game, like you mentioned. So yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. This is a lot of fun. So anytime you guys need it, hit me up.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. Greg, send it out, brother.
All right. Thanks a lot. Be here every day, 9:30 to 9:55 on the Blue Review. Go check out Dodger Blue 1958. They do a great job over there with him. It's Jeff Spiegel. It's Scott Gearman. I think it's how you say his last name. Blake Williams, Matt Moreno, and Blake Williams, everybody else that they got over there. Really, really good stuff. Daniel Starkhand. There's some really, really fun guys over there. So go check them out. But be here tomorrow, 9:30 to 9:55. Marcus Grant will be back, and I will be at the Dodger game tonight. So come check me out with Steve Mason. So see you there and see you tomorrow.